Is Iran trying to produce a nuclear weapon? Now, I don't mean that question in the big picture sense, like, has this been their goal all along? Have they had a nuclear weapons program? I'm talking about something much more immediate. So I made a video last week about Pickaxe Mountain, about this heavily fortified underground facility where the Iranians have been moving the equipment from their other nuclear facilities that were damaged in the previous rounds of attacks, and they've been moving that material, all of that, the centrifuges and the equipment into Pickaxe Mountain. And the question is, are they also moving the uranium there? We know they have a stockpile of 60% uranium that very quickly can be enriched to a weapons grade level. Even with what they have, they could probably already produce a dirty bomb, which is not quite a nuclear weapon, but a very dangerous weapon that could spread dangerous radioactivity over a large area. I covered all of that in that video. What I want to focus on today is, what is the Iranian government's position on nuclear weapons? And I don't mean that in an unofficial sense. We know they've been trying to get a nuclear weapon, but through the messaging that we're seeing in Iranian state media and from leading Iranian public figures, are we seeing them prepare the ground to change their doctrine? Now, why would they need to prepare the ground? Well, famously, there was an announcement made a number of years ago that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei had put out a fatwa banning the production of nuclear weapons, banning use of nuclear weapons. Now, that fatwa was never actually produced. It was claimed and it was told to the IAEA as a kind of cover, but it has been very public, and you'll often hear Iranian leadership say, of course, we're not making a nuclear weapon. We have a fatwa that prohibits us from making, a fatwa is an Islamic religious ruling. We have this ruling from the Ayatollah that we're not allowed to make nuclear weapons, which means that if they wanted to make a nuclear weapon now, they would at least have to save face by saying that things have changed and that fatwa is no longer in effect. Well, I want to show you a few articles that have been published recently, and we're going to read between the lines and try to understand where this is right now. So let's head to it. First is an article, an extensive piece that was published just the other day in the New York Times. Iran's new leader is more open to pursuing a nuclear weapon, U.S. intelligence says. The previous supreme leader, who was killed early in the war, had renounced nuclear weapons. U.S. spy agencies believe his son is more interested in building a bomb. And this is from a couple days ago, July 24th. American intelligence agencies believe that Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, is far more interested than his father and predecessor in pursuing a nuclear weapon, according to officials briefed on the assessments. Ayatollah Khamenei's father, who was killed at the start of the war in an Israeli attack aided by U.S. intelligence, had sworn off developing a nuclear weapon, while American officials long asserted that Iran wanted to be capable of building a nuclear weapon. Many believe that Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's hesitancy was genuine. U.S. intelligence agencies believe that Mojtaba Khamenei and the harder-line government that emerged after the United States and Israel killed many of Iran's previous leaders have ambitions to develop advanced nuclear weaponry. While U.S. officials insist Tehran has not made any moves to restart its nuclear program, Iran has taken some steps to preserve its nuclear assets after the U.S. strikes on key facilities last year or during pauses in fighting during the current war. Iran has moved at least some centrifuges, according to American officials, to a heavily fortified underground complex in central Iran that the United States refers to as Pickaxe Mountain. The Wall Street Journal first reported this week that Israeli intelligence had tracked the movement of the centrifuges. While such a move could be a first step towards rebuilding enrichment capability, U.S. officials said they believe that for now, Iran is more interested in preserving some of its equipment by trying to move it outside the range of American bombs. Whatever missteps the United States has made in its war with Iran, the damage to the Iranian nuclear facilities, particularly in its strikes last year, succeeded in at least freezing progress on the nuclear program. The intelligence agencies assessed that the damage would have set back the program by only 6 months had the Iranians immediately moved to repair the centrifuges or restart enrichment work at other sites. But American officials said the Iranians did not immediately dig out all the facilities or restart enrichment at other locations. Still, the building blocks of a bomb, most notably Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, remain intact and accessible to Tehran. Ali Khamenei had issued a religious order, or fatwa, prohibiting the use of nuclear weapons by Iran, a stance publicly announced to the International Atomic Energy Agency in 2005. The fatwa had its limits. While it prevented Iran from using a nuclear bomb, it did not block the government from developing its overall program or taking steps towards weaponization. Even after the fatwa was in place, harder line elements in the Iranian government wanted to be able to quickly develop a nuclear weapon. Now, why would they want to be able to quickly develop one? For a doomsday scenario where their regime is being threatened, which is kind of where we're headed right now. That's where I'm headed in this video. But based on public statements and intercepted conversations before the war, American intelligence officials assessed that Mojtaba Khamenei did not share his father's hesitancy and was interested in pursuing an advanced nuclear weapon. Okay, now that's the story from the New York Times. Now I want to show you a piece from MEMRI, the Middle East Media Research Institute. They're a fantastic website. Go to them, memri.org, MEMRI.org. If you haven't heard of them already, I've used their material before. And they put out a report about a week ago, July 21st. Iranian officials call for building a nuclear bomb. And it's a report of various statements that have been made just recently. So this is all very recent stuff. In recent weeks, Iranian officials, most of them affiliated with the messianic apocalyptic school of thought that has come to power since the assassination of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. You see, Mojtaba and the IRGC guys, Vaidi, and these guys who've taken over are assumed to be more extreme than the other guys. Look, they all have the same extreme ideology. I don't buy this distinction between moderates and extremists. The only distinction that I might buy, and this was mentioned in a recent conversation I had with Dr. David Wormser. If you're not catching those conversations over on the Israel 365 news channel, you want to catch them once a week. I talked with Dr. David Wormser, one of the top experts in the world on the Middle East. And what he said is that you don't have moderates, but you might have people who are more self-interested. Meaning it could be that Foreign Minister Erick and maybe this guy, the Speaker of the House, Ghalibaf, might be willing to save their own skin and cut a deal, whereas they're not as suicidally, apocalyptically fanatical as Vaidi and some of the others. But I don't really buy a difference in school of thought. But nevertheless, Mojtaba is known to be much more militant than his father. And they've called for a change in Iran's nuclear doctrine and for the building of a nuclear bomb in response to the challenges faced by the country's Islamic regime. This is all recently. Check this out. It should be noted that on July 7th, a couple weeks ago, an article stating that the Iranian regime had no choice but to build an atomic bomb was posted on the website of IRGC-affiliated Fars news agency, but was removed several hours later. I think I covered that in one of my videos. A number of Iranian officials have stressed lately that Iran can use a tactical nuclear weapon against targets in Israel, claiming that this would not be considered to be using a nuclear bomb. Furthermore, against this backdrop, MEMRI has reported on an Iranian policy of nuclear ambiguity and Iran's claim that it could assemble a nuclear bomb within a few hours, meaning maybe they're trying to be ambiguous, maybe they're trying to threaten and make everyone fear that they have a nuclear weapon already. Below are additional statements made in recent days by Iranian regime officials calling for a change in Iran's nuclear doctrine and for the building of a nuclear bomb in order to confront the threats faced by Iran's Islamic regime. Majlis, the Majlis is their parliament. Majlis National Security and Foreign Policy Committee member Ahmad Bakshayesh Ardestani, the time has come for Iran to build a nuclear bomb. It has paid enough for this. Ahmad Bakshayesh Ardestani, a member of the Majlis National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, said on July 14th, right, a couple weeks, a little more than a week ago, in an interview that the time had come for the Iranian regime to build a nuclear bomb. I think the time has come for Iran to build a nuclear bomb because it has paid enough for this. Therefore, it must build it now. In response to a question about whether Iran would do so and whether there would be a global consensus against it, he answered, is there not a global consensus against Iran today? In other words, what difference does it make if the world is against it, if there's a global consensus? They're all against us anyway. The leaders of the Western world and America are waging daily war against us. America has deployed 60,000 troops, ships, frigates, and warships in the Sea of Oman and the Indian Ocean. The consensus still exists. So you will cry and yell only once. And now we have another guy, Abraham Razai, spokesman of the Majlis National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, wrote on his X account on July 2nd, calling for Iran's nuclear doctrine to be amended and for Iran to develop military nuclear capabilities. These are not marginal characters. This is the National Security and Foreign Policy Committee spokesman. In a regime like this, that people don't just talk off the cuff. And he called on his X account for Iran to develop military capabilities. That is a nuclear bomb. Rezai's post on X was in response to Israeli Defense Minister Katz's threat to Iranian Supreme Leader Mojtaba, and in response to the 8th clause of the U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding, which renews Iran's commitment to not acquire or develop nuclear weapons. It should be noted, meaning he was saying that we should not have agreed to that, we, meaning the Iranians, should revise the nuclear doctrine. It should be noted that the Iranian regime's claims that the late Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei had issued a fatwa banning nuclear weapons are false, and memory has written about this extensively over the years. So that's a separate issue. They claim that this fatwa never really existed. Below is a translation of Rezai's post on X. Quote, the threat by the Zionist regime's war minister to assassinate the leader of the Iranian nation is a strong and solid reason for our nuclear doctrine to be amended along with the 8th clause of the Memorandum of Understanding. Now, a little bit more here. Political theoretician and analyst Ali Akbar Rafipour, who is affiliated with Iran's radical messianic school of thought. When your enemy threatens you with nuclear attack, you must also be able to threaten them in exactly the same way. Political theoretician and analyst Ali Akbar Rafipour, who heads the Masaf, Struggle Against Zionism, Humanism, and Freemasons Ideological Institute. That is actually the name of an institute in Iran, the Struggle Against Zionism, Humanism, and Freemasons. Okay, he said on July 5th, this July 5th, on a program on the political online network Revolution Street, operated by the Fars news agency, quote, I am not a jurisprudent, but as an analyst, I understand that when your enemy threatens you with nuclear attack, you must also be able to threaten them in exactly the same way. A journalist once asked then U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo why he hadn't imposed the same conditions on North Korea, and Pompeo answered, because North Korea has a nuclear bomb. Kayan, editor-in-chief. Kayan is one of the state media outlets. The editor-in-chief, Hossein Shariat Madari, the distance between us and a nuclear weapon is a matter of will, not of technology. Hossein Shariat Madari, editor-in-chief of the regime mouthpiece Kayan, said on July 9th, in an interview with IRGC-affiliated Fars News, that the Islamic Republic has the knowledge and technical ability to build a nuclear weapon. But today it is being prevented from doing so by the command of the martyred leader, Ali Khamenei. And any change in this decision depends on the opinion of Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei. The following are key excerpts from the interview. The martyred Imam did not see producing a nuclear weapon as permissible, but has this ruling changed with the circumstances? The decision depends on the opinion of the new Supreme Leader. Similarly, it is important to note that our distance from producing a nuclear weapon is not technological, but a matter of will. They have everything they need. We have the knowledge and technology to create a nuclear weapon, and we can produce it whenever we want. And as our martyred Imam Ali Khamenei said, no power can stop us in this matter, but we are prevented from doing this now at the command of the martyred master. And if this decision changes due to changing circumstances, it is clear that our will in this matter will also change. Next, military affairs analyst Majid Rajabi said on June 9th that Iran's nuclear threshold doctrine has failed, and only a possession of a nuclear bomb can create deterrence. Look at that. And finally, Jabba Paidari on Telegram. This is the Stability Front. The Stability Front is this like super extreme faction led by this guy named Saeed Jalili. Saeed Jalili has been in favor of Iran having a nuclear bomb for a long time. The Khati Energy Telegram channel, also affiliated with Stability Front and its leader Saeed Jalili, called in a post on July 5th for Iran to take advantage of the golden opportunity of the oil crisis he claims is currently impacting the U.S. in order to build a nuclear bomb and achieve nuclear deterrence. The channel explained that although the price of raw crude is actually lower, the American consumer pays high prices because of the refining costs. And then basically he says down at the end here, It went on to call for disrupting the movement of oil through the Strait of Hormuz for 6 months and for Iran to take advantage of this period of time when the U.S. is building up its oil reserves in order to build a nuclear bomb. And this is a very interesting indication of where this is going. This was published on WANA 2 days ago. 2 days ago, WANA published this really weird story. This piece of, I don't even know if you can call it analysis. It's a very strange piece here. It's listed under foreign policy, and the title of it is 8 Notions About Iran's Nuclear Program. Okay, what is it? 8 Notions About Iran's Nuclear Program. So it says here, in this text, we have outlined 8 recurring and significant notions, like themes is what they mean, centered on nuclear programs. Atom means modernity. And so now it's a little bit of a history lesson. The Pahlavi regime, that's the Shah who ruled Iran before the revolution, the Pahlavi regime sought to modernize the country at an unprecedented pace. And from its perspective, achieving a full nuclear fuel cycle was one of the symbols of modernity. The nuclear program was among the most ambitious undertakings of the Iranian government, pursuing various political and economic objectives. Numerous transactions and agreements were made between the government and other countries, large and small, for the purchase, equipping, maintenance, and repair of nuclear facilities and uranium, and then it lists the countries. According to surviving historical sources, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the Shah, also engaged in covert efforts toward the development of nuclear weapons, which became one of the roots of his disagreement with the U.S. administration. So notion number 1 is that it's a sign of your modernity. Notion number 2, Atom means sanctions and resolutions. In the years following the Islamic Revolution and the 8-year war with Iraq, all international contracts were terminated, either by foreign countries or by the Iranian government itself, and Iran's nuclear activity slowed down and faded into the background. The nuclear file reemerged in the spotlight years later when the Bush administration in the United States was promoting the term axis of evil and turned media and public attention towards Iran's nuclear facilities. Mohammad Khatami's government immediately appointed a team headed by Hassan Rouhani to lead the negotiations. Despite all of Iran's efforts to build trust, the Board of Governors issued a harsh resolution against Iran, and as negotiations continued, despite the most extensive global inspections, the highest number of visits, and the most advanced monitoring equipment ever imposed on a country, numerous further resolutions and sanctions were enacted against the nation. So number 1 was that it's a sign of modernity. Number 2, when we started doing anything in the nuclear realm, we were subject to sanctions and resolutions against us. And third, atom means militancy. And this is the next stage in Iranian nuclear history. The administration of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad and the political mindset he represented ended the voluntary suspension and reopened previously sealed facilities. This escalation intensified Iran's confrontation with the West. Negotiating teams continued their efforts, but the West's sanctions policy against Iran remained unaltered. During this period, in the eyes of Western governments, Western public opinion, and even some segments of Iranian society, the insistence on continuing the nuclear program was interpreted as fanning the flames of discord and militancy. The first world countries, which themselves enjoyed the blessings of nuclear energy, many of which had built atom bombs, and in the case of the United States, had even used nuclear weapons militarily and openly, had now established arrangements to prevent other nations from accessing the same nuclear benefits. Next is atom means progress. Simultaneously with the extensive Western media campaign against Iran's nuclear program, Iranian media began producing news and reports on the benefits of nuclear energy in various fields, including health, industry, agriculture, medicine, and sought to direct public attention to the peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear program. So, nuclear program, at first it was something that the Shah was doing, and then he ran afoul of the West because he wanted to look at weapons. But then after the revolution and the Iran-Iraq war, all of those, it all kind of went, it went into the background because all of the international contracts were canceled. But then we started bringing it back, and we were subject to sanctions. And then Ahmadinejad started building it up even more and was accused of being militant. But then the Iranian government started educating people about all the domestic benefits of the nuclear program. Iran's dependency, along with that of the other global South nations, on Western governments' perspectives regarding the use of their natural resources reminds us that we're still living in an area of colonialism. In other words, Western governments making the rules about what we're allowed to do is colonialism, a colonialism more subtle than that of the 20th century, whose instruments have changed, but whose essence remains fundamentally the same. And then finally, we have the current period we're in. Adam means war. Now, in the aftermath of two major military strikes by the United States and the occupying regime of Israel against our country, which inflicted immense human and material loss, the connection between war and the nuclear program has become ingrained in the language of many Western media discourses. In other words, now, what does nuclear mean? It means you're going to get attacked. It means if Iran pursues nuclear, you're going to get attacked. There's going to be a war. Throughout the years of harsh pressure, sanctions, overt and covert wars, assassinations, and military and cyber assaults, Iranian scientists managed to advance the country's nuclear program and develop and manufacture many of the industry's needs domestically. Generations strived along this path, and even in the face of brutal assassinations, they did not relent. Today, Iran's nuclear program stands as the enduring legacy of those efforts, a mirror of Iranian engineers, scientists' capabilities, and for many, a source of pride and honor. So now, because of everything we've been subjected to in this colonialism trying to prevent us from building nuclear energy, it is a source of pride, the courage of the nuclear scientists who pushed forward to have a nuclear program, and that is a source of Iranian pride. And finally, the last one, Adam means peace. And this is the strategic one. Look at this. From the perspective of many Iranians, the only guarantee of peace is the advancement of the nuclear program. This is the most important line in the whole article, by the way. This is what it was all driving towards. This is giving rationale for changing the nuclear doctrine on nuclear weapons, this is not about civilian energy. Look, the only guarantee of peace is the advancement of the nuclear program. According to many military strategists, the atom bomb is a weapon designed not to be used. In other words, a weapon for peace. If we look at Ukraine today, it was only after it dismantled the nuclear weapons left over from the Soviet era that Russia invaded the country. Whether that's true or not in terms of the cause and effect is a separate issue. No full-scale war in modern history has been waged against a nuclear-armed state. In recent years, there's one more after this. In recent years, a campaign called Just One Number has been launched by Abolfazl Bazargan, a professor at the University of Tehran, which has sought to bring the demand for nuclear weapons to the forefront of public discourse. This guy, the fact that they're quoting him in this piece means they're elevating his voice. Who is this guy? He surfaces every now and then. He's quoted. Here's an article from 2024, from a couple years ago, called "The Evolving Debate: Iran's Nuclear Policy and Regional Security Concerns." And this is from the Tehran Times, another state media outlet. And I'll just read you this one passage here so you understand who this guy is. National security experts such as Abolfazl Bazargan consider that revising the nuclear doctrine is the only way to control tensions in West Asia. In an interview with local media outlet, Bazargan underscored that nuclear capability has proven to have a significant impact on the level of competition, as well as on the ability to manage rivalry and tensions, contributing to stability in the region among adversaries. He also highlighted that Iran is not a normal state, and therefore security issues must be addressed appropriately. Quote, "The presence of U.S. nuclear vessels in the Persian Gulf and their bases around Iran, which have repeatedly threatened us with a nuclear attack, further increases our perception of the need to develop nuclear capabilities." So he's always been of this opinion, and he was quoted as that side of the argument back then, but now they're elevating his voice. He's this guy who's been a very public voice advocating for Iran to have nuclear weapons so that they can be more secure and more, from their enemies. Adam means a strong Iran. Many politicians and Iranians believe that despite all the costs incurred in pursuing the nuclear program, today it is essential for the country's industrial, economic, military, and energy development. A powerful Iran of tomorrow, above all, needs deterrence and security, so that in the shadow of that security, the country's progress can be accelerated. In other words, we need a nuclear weapon to deter the enemies so that we can flourish as a nation. The Islamic Republic of Iran has faced constant security threats since its very inception, and the country's future will be shaped in these critical and present moments. So the title of the piece is notions about Iran's nuclear program, but what it is laying out the case for why the doctrine has to change. Now, take a step back and think about what we just read. This is an Iranian state media outlet. This is not media. This is a press release. This is the Iranian leadership putting out their messaging, making the case for why they need to create nuclear weapons, why they need to change the doctrine. And meanwhile, we have the memory piece, which cites a whole bunch of different people in different levels of the Iranian government and public figures calling for this change. And this is all from the last month. And we have this piece in the New York Times, which is putting forward the same idea that things are changing. So, folks, you put it all together. I don't think it is a stretch at all to say quite confidently that Iran is in the process of changing, of backing away from the nuclear, from the official doctrine of Ali Khamenei, and they are publicly putting out there a justification, not for a domestic nuclear energy program. That's not what this article was saying. This article was saying, think about the deterrence line. This article was saying that we need to have nuclear weapons, and they're putting it out there in their own state media. This is serious. This is serious, and the clock is ticking. We need to keep an eye on this, and I'll be bringing you more updates as we have them. God bless. Thanks for watching the channel. Please share this video with somebody who you think might find it interesting or helpful. And I appreciate all of your help in helping grow the channel. It's really been remarkable. And God bless you all.